12:36 on 95.3 WBEV, powered by Daily Dodge. Welcome into today's Community Comment. I'm your host, Kevin Haugen. It's my pleasure to welcome into our conversations today our guests on the program. It's my pleasure to welcome into our Daily Dodge TV studio, Waupun Police Chief Jeremy Rosh. Chief, thank you so much for coming in today.
Hey, thanks for having us. Having me again, Kevin.
Yeah, so it was been a busy stretch. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. I had normally scheduled in you last month, but you reached out to me and said, hey, I'm just swamped with work. So we had a push back last month, and now it's great to have you back in the studio to fill us in on everything that's happening with the Waupun Police Department. Again, we'll talk about just how busy it's been with your agency the last 2 months, more in a little bit. But if you do have a question for the Chief of Police in Waupun during our program today, you can call in at 885-4446, or you can text 887-9595, and we'll be sure to get to your questions during our program this afternoon. But Chief, I want to start out our conversation with a department update and just kind of where things are at with your agency.
Yeah, before I get to that, I'd actually like to bring up it's my wedding anniversary, 15 years, so I'd like to reach out to my wife and say, I love you, thanks for putting up with me for 15 years, and hope to see 15 more, and yeah.
It's awesome. Yeah, we joked a little bit, too, before you came on air today. You did tell me that you were planning on announcing that. I completely forgot. But yesterday we had the sheriff on. It was his anniversary just recently. He announced that on air, and it's my wife and I anniversary in just a couple of days. So it seems to be this weekish in July is a very popular wedding date, apparently.
Well, congrats to you as well, and congrats for being a new father.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
And congratulations on 15 years. I hope I'm looking forward to making it that long in my marriage. Hopefully my wife doesn't get sick of me by then. So
it flies by, let me tell you.
Yeah. That's great. Back on topic here. So department updates, where things at with your agency right now?
You alluded that we're busy, and we're still in some hiring processes, but currently we have 14 sworn staff out on the streets. A couple of them are finishing up with field training, doing a great job. I have a young man in the police academy up at Fox Valley right now, and he's going to graduate in about 2 weeks, so looking forward and excited for getting Cole on board. And, busy time. We have completed our training requirements for the year. I don't know if everybody knows out there, law enforcement officers have to have 24 hours of training per year just to be stay certified, and it's a requirement by the state of Wisconsin. So that was completed at the end of June. Mm-hmm. Speaking of training, today and tomorrow we're doing firearms training at the police department. Last fall, our outdoor firearms range was completed, so we have a brand new facility. We also have an indoor range that we can use during the winter months as well. So the outdoor facility, it was done and purchased and installed for relatively reasonable. Big shout out to the Department of Public Works for really helping us with that.
Fantastic. Great. And again, the phone number to get into the program today, 885-4446. We do have a caller on the line. I want to welcome them on to Community Comment.
Hi, good, Kevin. How are you?
I'm doing well, Tyler. How are you?
It's nice out there.
It is a beautiful day outside. You are right, yes.
And happy anniversary to the chief.
Thank you.
My question is, did you always want to be a law enforcement, or what got you into law enforcement?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'm the type of person that, early on in my career or when thinking about getting into a career, I didn't want to sit behind a cubicle every day of my life. And I enjoyed different tasks and challenges. So in high school, you take all these tests, that the counselor puts out there. And usually what happens is you have like 2 or 3 careers that shows where your interests might be. So at that time, law enforcement was one of them, and I always thought, being a police officer would be a neat idea. I didn't know there was a lot more to it than just pulling people over and giving them tickets. But yeah, there's a heck of a lot more to it at that point. But that was back in the mid '90s, and actually, I participated in Beaver Dam Police Department actually. So I went to Lemire High School, and Beaver Dam had a kind of a cadet program at the time and I participated in that, and that intrigued me a little bit more. And ultimately, I went off to college for criminal justice, police science, and did a lot of ride-alongs with the city of Waupun. They took me on as an intern, and it just made me more interested, each time I did a ride-along to become a law enforcement officer. So it was kind of figure out what I may be good at or may be interested in, follow through with it with, my own research in essence, and, and here I am 22 and a half years later.
Well, congratulations and thank you very much for your service.
Thanks for the call.
All right. Thank you again, Tyler, for the phone call. Again, the number is 885-4446. We do have another caller on the line. Let's head back to the phones and say welcome to Community Comment.
Hello.
Hello, you're on the air.
Hi. I'm wondering, when you move to a different city, how long do you have to change your driver's license address, and where do you change it?
Well, you'd have to change it with the Department of Motor Vehicles. They do the changes, and I believe it's. Ooh, that's a good question. I gotta look. It's relatively quickly, but I think you're good if you're within about 30 days.
Okay, does it cost a lot?
That I don't know. I haven't changed an address in a while.
I haven't either.
If you get a duplicate ID, it's going to cost some, but I think if you just call them up and change your address, it may be free.
I think you're.
Well, if we went to motor vehicle in Beaver Dam, would we be able to do it there?
Yeah, you should. Yeah, you should be able to get that done there.
Okay. I think we better do that before voting comes around, but we won't be in the city here.
Yeah, do that before
Yep.
voting comes. Otherwise, you're going to need some mail to prove your residency. And I've actually had to do that. When I moved, I didn't have an updated driver's license quite yet because we had just moved, right around voting season, and I had to provide, I believe, 3 documents of mail.
Yep.
We've lived in a village of Reese for 49 years, and we've never had to change our address, and now we have to change our address.
Yeah, it's a process, but the DMV is a good place to go to get at least the driver's license updated, and especially get that done before election time comes around.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, yeah, thank you for the phone call. Again, the number is 885-4446. I should know that because I just changed an address on my driver's license like a year and a half ago, and I want to say it wasn't a whole new ID. It was just a change of address, and I don't believe I paid anything for that.
Right.
I think I did it online. You can go to the DMV and get it done there. If you're maybe a little bit more savvy on the computer, you can do it online. Just enter in that information. They'll mail that out to you. But I believe if it's a change of address, there's no fee typically associated with that.
I don't believe so. I mean, that was probably about 10 years ago when I did it.
Yeah.
There wasn't a fee at that time.
Yeah, but again, the DMV is the best place to go and get those things sorted out. Again, thank you for that phone call. And Chief, quickly back onto our topic that we were discussing about before, the department update. So it sounds like where things are standing, it sounds like the agency's in a good spot with where staffing is. Is that kind of a safe thing to assume?
Yeah, we're coming along. Basically, I have 2 vacant spots. I have a really good candidate that I'm kind of holding the spot for at this point. But we have 2 vacancies at this point. And, one other neat thing that we got going on, and this is the first time it's ever happened in our department's history. Sheriff Schmidt, who was here yesterday, reached out and said that they have an opening on the SWAT team. My agency has never had a member on the Dodge County SWAT team. It is a county-wide SWAT team, so you have to go and try out. You got to apply for it. And one of our officers, Officer A.J. Halverson, was selected by the Dodge County SWAT team to be a member. So he is a member at this point, and we're excited for him. We're excited for what he's going to bring to them and what he can bring back to us with tactics and training and things like that. So pretty neat that we got that going on.
Fantastic. That's awesome. And real quick, back on to our last caller who questioned about how long to get those IDs updated with the change of address. Our video producer today, Corey, sent an image text with an update. And according to Google, it says within 10 days of your move, you should notify the State Transportation Department of your change of address. So 10 days. ideally within that stretch. I feel like if something happens where, if you tell them circumstances change and it's outside those 10 days, I'm sure they'll work with you and get those things figured out. But again, that's according to Google, that's what they recommend to get that change within those 10 days after your move. But Chief, I want to also now here spend a few minutes talking about the last couple of months with your agency. It has been, and this is something we talked about with the sheriff yesterday. It's just been a extremely busy time for local law enforcement and police, and it's no different for your agency. Just let us in on what these last 2 months have been for your agency.
Yeah, like you alluded, the sheriff's office, both Dodge and Fond du Lac County, have been extremely busy, and we hear both of them because we're right on the border, and we hear all the radio transmissions of both. For us, in May was an extremely busy time. 29 criminal arrests. June 22. Typically, we're in the 15 range, so we're double what we normally have been doing. So that takes a lot of extra time and effort. And it's not just an arrest. It might be a medical clearance at a hospital. It's doing the reports and the paperwork. It's testifying in court. It's providing disclosure to the district attorney's office and the defense attorneys. So there's a lot more that goes with it on the back end.
Yeah, it's the same thing we discussed yesterday. Just because the cuffs are slapped on somebody and they are arrested, that process, that time spent for that officer isn't done at that point. It goes on long afterwards with the paperwork, like you mentioned, the court proceedings, if it goes to trial, going in to testify, and a lot of times that takes place year to 2 years after the fact. So then there's refamiliarizing yourself with the details of certain cases. So it's an extensive process and a long time for officers to be involved with it.
And it's funny you say years. I mean, I had a case a number of years ago. It was a burglary. The subject went back to prison. It was 4 years before I testified for a burglary case, and it was also a looting case. So this was a number of years ago, but it can take years.
it's hard to I struggle to remember things that happened last week, let alone 4 years ago. So yeah, there's a lot on law enforcement to keep important details and facts filed away in the correct manner too, so you can go back and reference these things and take accurate notes and do those things immediately after an arrest takes place. So it certainly is a very busy task for police. Another thing that I wanted to hit on too, and something that not quite involved with the police department, but still is a very big, impactful event with the city, was the flooding that took place in Waupun last month. All the streets you mentioned are now open. But that was, I know it's something that, again, as law enforcement, you're not necessarily dealing with that on a day-to-day basis, but that certainly impacts your job because there's certain patrol routes, certain calls you have to respond to, and that just impacts your day-to-day ability to enforce the law in Waupun.
Yeah, there was a few streets that were closed down, and it happened multiple times. It wasn't just one rain or weather event. There were multiple over a few weeks span. We have to track that data as well because we may have to report it to try and get reimbursement from the state or from the federal government if it meets a certain criteria or level. But yeah, it affects emergency response. We help close roadways, put up barricades, but you know what? It's most impactful to the citizens. Yeah. A lot of citizens had flooded basements, properties that were damaged. I look at the golf course, that looked like one big lake, and it's finally drying out, but it's gonna affect their business probably, for a long time due to dead grass and things like that.
Maybe one last question on just kind of how busy the last couple of months have been for your agency as the man in charge, as the chief of police for the Waupun Police Department. What's your role in keeping morale up for officers who are dealing with, days where they're working, 15, 16 hours potentially, or just working long hours and long stretches in a row? How do you manage keeping morale up and keeping people refreshed? Because it's a job that requires a lot of attention, a lot of energy to do. What are your goals or what are you focused on to keep that up for Waupun police officers?
I think the biggest thing is open communication, staying positive. Coming and doing things like this radio show to tell our story. they were busy. They've been busy for the last year, and they're doing a great job. You know, open lines of communication are huge, and just supporting them wherever I can.
Great, fantastic. Again, we're chatting with Waupun Police Chief Jeremy Rosh here on Community Comment. Another topic that we want to hit on our program this afternoon is illegal and modified exhausts. It's an issue that has had some complaints, I believe, in the city of Waupun. We just want to make sure that motorists out there kind of know state law, state statutes. We do have a graphic. Maybe we can flash it up. There we go. If you're watching on Daily Dodge TV, you can see what state law has to say about it. But Chief, please take it over and let our listeners know and our viewers know what they need to know.
Yeah, so I think the most important part of this statute is number 2 from what we're seeing. So we're getting complaints of vehicles that are modifying their exhaust. From my research and talking with mechanics and researching things online, I'm not a huge car guy, but it seems to be that they're putting in an electronic cutout within the exhaust system. So what that does is it when it's closed, the car is going to sound normal, and then when they either hit a button or in their vehicle or on a remote, it opens up that cutout, and it makes a backfire that sounds like pop, 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 like whether it's a gunshot or a firework or whatnot. So it becomes one of those quality of life issues that can be an annoyance to people within the community. Obviously, there's statutory rules against modifying exhaust systems, but the quality of life thing is what the small things in a city our size generally are what come to light to police and for those annoyance type situations. So, and you have to think about it this way: if you continue to do this with your vehicles, it's going to damage them. At some point, it's going to damage that valve system because it's not getting back pressure back to the valve, and you're going to damage your system, and your mechanic's going to love you. But for us, we have to try and deter this behavior because it does affect others, and we deter it through presence and through enforcement, and I think we also need to deter it through education. And that's why we're talking about it right now.
Is there a noise ordinance in the city of Waupun that you can't reach a certain decibel threshold?
There is a decibel threshold in Waupun. I believe it's 75. Okay. But we would look at this statute because it's more easily to be proven. Yeah.
And when we look at that statute, is there, say if there is an officer driving down the street, they catch somebody who is breaking that law, is it a demerit point hit against your driver's license? Is it a citation or a fine? What are the penalties for getting
Yeah, it's a
caught?
citation. I would actually have to look up the specific amounts, but it's going to, for ours, it goes to municipal court, so it's going to be under $200. It's not like a citation that would go to circuit court. That would be approximately $100 more. For an equipment violation like that, it's not going to have any points associated with it.
Yeah. Okay. So again, if you're missing the graphic on Daily Dodge TV, state statute 347.39. So if you happen to have good memory, you can look that up and kind of read it for yourself and learn a little bit more about this and see what's allowed or what's not allowed on the streets. And is it different in city areas versus rural areas? Or is it all across the board?
No, all across the board. This is a state statute, so let your friends know that it is, it's not legal and that it can damage your vehicle down the road, and maybe I'll save you some money.
Hey, we're all about wanting to save money here on Community Comment. And again, we're chatting with Waupun Police Chief Jeremy Rosh, and we just have a few more minutes left on our program this afternoon. And with that time, we want to talk about a very important topic, and it's important to give out some phone number reminders and contact information for those potentially struggling with this, and that's mental health and getting that help when you need it and if you need it. And it's tough for people to maybe recognize when they need that help. But Chief, what's the call to action here that you want to give our listeners?
Yeah, I just wanted to bring some attention to it. I know there's been a lot of attention to mental health and crisis in recent years, but we continue to see on a daily basis whether the person, becomes emergency detained or not. A lot of times we're just going to check welfares, and they're a lot of these people need assistance in some manner. Our role is generally, if we go to a check welfare complaint, we make a determination whether or not county crisis needs to be contacted. And if it is somebody that's in crisis that may be suicidal, county crisis has a threshold, and they make a decision on whether or not this person needs to be held or detained on emergency detention. And if that happens, what we generally do is we get them transported to the local hospital for medical clearance. So sometimes that can take 2 hours, sometimes that can take days. We just had one where we were up there from Thursday morning all the way to Monday afternoon before we could get that person transported to a mental health facility. So it taxes law enforcement when we have to stay that long, but we have to get people the help that they need. And from there, so once we get them to the mental health hospital, they're there for up to 72 hours before a court hearing or an agreement can be made. And if there is an agreement made, then crisis and the courts figure out what they need to do to help this person further. But it's almost like an everyday occurrence where we're checking the welfare of somebody that may be in some sort of crisis. So I wanted to bring that to light again, and that there are resources out for people that are struggling in crisis. We have those. They're up on the screen. We got Dodge County Crisis, the phone numbers during the day till about 4, and then after hours and weekends, Fond du Lac County. And then actually a really pretty decently put together site is that preventsuicide.wisconsin.org, and they have that 988 lifeline number as well. We consistently work with our countywide partners from Human Services. We try and make the processes efficient and effective. A lot of times there's not beds open in the state of Wisconsin, so we're waiting for a bed to transport somebody to at a mental health facility. So that's a lot of times why it takes so long. But new hospitals are popping up left and right, and we have a lot of new resources that we can use for those patients.
And like the previous topic, you mentioned, Chief, education is a key point in terms of getting that message out. And I feel it's the same thing with mental health, and just reminding the public what resources are available for loved ones who have somebody who's struggling with something like this, that there are options out there that they can get help and reach out and get that needed support system in place for people who are maybe struggling with this type of issue. So,
yeah, in the county crisis groups, they have tons of resources. It's not just Dodge County Crisis or Fond du Lac County, but also if you're an employee, you might have EAP, so Employment Assistance Program, and they may have resources for you as well. For free. We have that in the city of Waupun for our city employees. We have other resources. Our insurance company provides resources, and on and on. Yeah. So there are a lot of avenues out there, and I think more now than ever. So if you do need assistance, please take advantage of that.
Well, we are just about out of time here on our community comment program this afternoon. I want to thank our guest again for coming into our studios today, Waupun Police Chief Jeremy Rosh. Chief, thank you again so much for coming in today.
Thanks, Kevin.
And that will do it for today's community comment.